Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in this month. For this one, I wanted to see how far I could push things like mood and mood lighting with one of the pieces I'll be doing for you this month. So I'm just going to start here and see what I can come up with. I know in some of the last ones I've been working a lot on setting up composition through kind of basic primary shapes and things like that. But for this one, I kind of wanted to see with just with atmospherics what kind of results I can get. So right now I'm just taking a basic mesh terrain piece and stretching it way out. I can put the camera down here for now, and that highlight at the end there, I can get a establishment of where my horizon line is going to be. I kind of want to have it relatively close there. Just going to go ahead and set my first bookmark here to establish that's where my horizon line will be. Just going to drag out a basic, turn on lit, and turn on a pretty basic movable or dynamic sunlight here. And then I'm going to drop in the thing that will make it all work for atmospherics, which is the exponential height fog. I'm going to turn on volumetric. Then I'm going to play a little bit with the fog height fall off, and I'm going to increase this to fog density of about 2, something like that. I'm going to work with the volumetric scattering intensity just to see what kind of results I get there. And also kind of play with the actual intensity of this sunlight here and see what I can get. Another thing I'm noticing, there's a very, very glossy underlying tone to this, so I might swap that for something a little less glossy to take away from the value comp that's going on there. Yeah, I like that. So looks very kind of otherworldly and planet-like right now, but it might be something we kind of want this month, or that I kind of want this month. The other thing I have said is that the field of view I have set at a pretty high angle, about 120, something like that, to get a nice sort of wraparound, almost fisheye result based on the overall angle of the scene here. So another thing I'll do, I'll put in just another kind of basic mountain piece and see if I start dragging it back what kind of results I can get with the silhouette. So it's all going to be about silhouette and some basic mood lighting in the front. And I don't even need to, in theory, I don't even need to put a material of any kind on this because the silhouette is so simple. So I might kind of see what I can get from there. And I might turn this down to 0.05 for the intensity for the directional light. And then I'm going to really quickly just put in a movable skylight. And I might turn that intensity down too as well to 0.1. Then see, work with the volumetric scattering distance there and see what kind of results I can get. Then I might play with the fog height fall off to see what I get there. And then I'm going to take a cloud plane and scale it up and see if I can add some complexity to the tops of this cloud work here. So I'm going to really increase the size and distance back in space. What's really great about UE4 is, you can scale the or have the atmospherics affect translucent materials, which used to not always be the case. You'd have to match up some very specific results, which was always kind of tricky. But for now, it's a lot easier. Just gonna kind of see what sort of cloud shapes I can get from here. That's kind of cool. Then turn this to 0. Interesting. I'm going to do 0.05. And then for this cloud plane, I'm going to elongate it. Yeah, that could lead to some interesting results there. And I'm going to go ahead and see what kind of Might not play too much with the color there. Another thing I might do is the scattering distribution, just kind of see kind of results I can get from that. Then gonna play a little more with the camera angle here. This is going to be a very moody kind of piece, which is something I'll definitely kind of want to see what we can get here. That's interesting. Yeah, you can see the volume height fog when a shadow is being cast. You get some interesting soft fall off there. Let me see if I can. Oh yeah, I can get a plane fall or a shadow cast from the transparent plane here, which is pretty cool. Let me put this back to a uniform scale here. So that's 500, 500, 500. I'm going to kind of put a ground plane or something like that here and see what kind of results I can get. Just play around with the different sort of fog heights that I have set up. Oh yeah, that's a star one that I made. Oh, I like that. That's really cool. I'm going to start playing around with some rocks here and see what kind of results I can get there. Just kind of take my basic rock shape here and see what kind of mood I can strike. And that's really cool. I like the shadow kind of cast off that goes on there. I might swap this material just so it's not covered with snow. There we go. Yeah, I like that. Might turn this rotation down. Turn this down so just kind of see what sort of range we can work with here. If we have a point light that kind of hangs out right here and see what it does there. As far as something interesting like a fire or something like that. That could be really cool. Yeah. I'm also going to play with sort of the radius here and see what different results I can get there. And just see so I'm just playing with the subtlety of the values here. Like something like that could be pretty cool. And I'm also going to add a little bit more of bounce lighting in here just because the ambience for the underside of this rock outcropping, it'd be nice to kind of have some different forms bouncing up into here. And so if I do something like that, you can get a very moody kind of scene going really fast, which is pretty cool. Playing around with this side of the image here. Seeing what kind of different shape language we can get from there. But actually, this might be one of those cases with this piece where less is more is definitely kind of the way to go. So turn that radius scale back up there. I'm going to take my traveler guy that I always use. And just stick him out here for a sense of scale and to get an interesting silhouette in the bottom of this image here. Give it a minute for UE4 to kick on here and get it working. There we go. So now I'm just playing with the sense of scale that we can have here with this guy. I kind of like that. That's actually a really nice sense of scale to have there. I'm going to take this person. Move his horse up, so let's rotate around the fire here. Maybe even kind of put it where it frames the fire a little bit more. Yeah, and so now we have this whole set of the image here where I'm going to kind of figure out what sort of interesting X factor we can plug in. Whatever that may be. I'm going to give it a little bit less of a green tone, and another thing I might do is duplicate and kind of crank up the intensity here for the bounce light. Yeah, and then I'll kind of do the rotation to make sure it's hitting the right target I want, in this case the horse, and then I'll turn the intensity back down. Yeah, so now kind of see what I can put over here now. I've been looking a lot at probably one of the greatest artists living right now, which is Simon Stalenhagen, his, if I'm pronouncing that last name right, and his work of taking a very kind of subtle, mundane scene like this with a lot of mood and really just really going to town, making it this wonderful, sort of fantastic, taking that kind of spin on it to open up all these really crazy, fantastical themes and the whole promise of an alternate world that he has set up. It's really a cool world that he's built with all his graphic novels that he's made. And so kind of want to use that in spirit, where it's like you have a sort of like tranquil, mundane scene, but there's something quite intriguing and almost macabre about it. So I want to see what sort of results I can get from that. And his work is very sci-fi based, but what I want to kind of do is take a sort of more primal fantasy base off of that and see what I can get from it. So, and because this is such a silhouette strong piece, I'm going to keep that in mind and worry less about the form and more about the overall silhouette that this piece is going to make. So I'm going to kind of go through some of the assets I made and or I've sculpted and see which one can fit. I might just take my rock material and just kind of slap it on because I don't really care too much about the material. I just kind of want to see what sort of simple silhouette can occur from this. So maybe this is a giant dead statue of a wolf deity or something like that. I like that. just kind of seeing what, yeah. I always try to establish these worlds where ancient deities kind of have a literal sense of living in the world through representations of statues or sculptures in stone or water or something like that. As it's a part of old shamanist mythology, which I think is really fascinating, and I love kind of having that represented quite literally in some of the fantastical art that I do. So yeah, I like kind of like these silhouettes I'm dragging out here and what's going on. So what I might do is take another cloud plane and just throw a little bit more atmospherics in there. Why not? But that's a little bit too bright, so I'm going to see if I can reach for something a little bit darker. Yeah, like that. I'm going to get back to my bookmark that I set up here. Yeah, there you go. And I might actually get rid of the horse. I might not even think that's needed to kind of take away from the interesting color scheme here. Just for a little tiny bit of detail, I'm going to set down this boulder pile piece here just so there's a little bit of bounce. And I'll see if I might work on the rotation here just to make sure the silhouette is a little bit stronger. And I'll play around with these silhouettes for quite a while to just make sure that, you know, everything's looking good. Might take away the spotlight too because I don't want to illuminate too much there. Then I'm gonna maybe rotate that there just because then do the cone angle and kind of work it up. Just, yeah, that looks really cool. Gonna save it really quick. Save that really quick and then get back to it. Then nothing I'll do, I might yeah, take that and see if I can get sort of some ground mist going here. See if that works. It's a little bit too bright for my taste. Let me see if I can salvage this. Yeah, I think it might be taking the light from the sunlight, so that might not be working entirely. Another thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of move at least the directional light and sunlight out of the way and the height fog icons. That won't change anything. I'm just literally moving the icons so I can have a little more understanding of what's going on with the actual scene. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting down some decals really quick here to get a little bit of splash of local color. I've kind of made some crazy color comps with these decals just to kind of see, based off other illustrations I've did, just to kind of get a little bit of splash of crazy local color in there and see what it does. I think I'm going to open up another viewport just so I don't lose the angle of my original scene, but I can still sort of move stuff around in a fluid way and not lose anything. And I was nice about decals is you can really be subtle with what kind of effects you want to have. And so I'll be kind of playing around with, yeah, what kind of little bits of splashes of local color we'll be playing on the ground here. You don't want it to detract from the strength of the local color that the ground with its simplicity, so you kind of want to watch out and be careful about that. Nothing I'll do, just not, it's not just limited to crazy illustrations that you're slapping on the environment like stickers. Like you can see here, I can use more naturalistic depictions of decals and see what kind of results I get from that. So I can do, let's see here. Yeah, I got all kinds of decal stuff going on here. I can sort of just plug them in and see what they do. As soon as they're done loading here. That's kind of interesting. I think that's like a almost mechanical thing or something that I have set up. I think I'll do, I'll kind of bring this up just to see exactly what it's doing here. And that's always interesting. And I can also put them back there in the distance to kind of get a different result of what's going on. So yeah, the silhouette of this wolf's head, I might swap it for something else really quick. So I'm not really digging what's going on there. Let's see what this does. That could be really cool. Yeah. Yeah, some very interesting kind of otherworldly shape language stuff going on there. I like that. I might rotate it so there's... Oh, another thing I might do is just pull in a reflection sphere just to unify the reflections that are going on here. And I might crank down the specularity or the Fresnel effect just to take away from the reflectivity that's going on. Or I can play around with the spotlights and kind of see what's going on here. So that's not illuminating anything. Let's see. Yeah, the directional light's doing something. I want to keep the directional light there because I like the way it's sort of splashing across the area here, so might have to rotate it like that. Then I might duplicate and just kind of see what's going on with... Yeah, that's cool. So this shape language that's going on, or the shape composition, is shaping up to be pretty cool, like he's leaving some sort of ancient camp or structure or something like that, and I just want to kind of see how far I can take that. So I kind of have big shapes established now. Now I kind of want to see what sort of small shape composition I can get. And so with that, I'm going to go down to some of my more sort of spindly, more detailed assets that I have here, like maybe some of this bamboo stuff that I've made. So I'm literally just kind of playing around with basic silhouette shapes and stuff like that. Yeah. And I don't dig on that green, so I'm going to have to figure out a way to swap that material, but Yeah, I'm playing around with more spindly plant-like shapes and seeing what I can get. So let me take this, plug it into the bamboo really quick. Yeah, that's some interesting. That's cool, but it's not quite what I'm looking for yet, so I'm going to keep on seeing what crops up here. Nothing going back to Simon Stonehog's pieces is it's very almost really frustrating how simple his pieces are, and they're absolutely brilliant, and that they can be so almost ridiculously simple and still hold that kind of power and everything. There's just no room for any kind of excess or extra assets in his scenes, and it can be very kind of deceiving in a way where it's like, well, it's so simple. Like, surely you need to add more. It's more about just being extremely decisive, extremely clear in what it is you want to communicate, and then having a masterful understanding or skill set of what you're putting down. So it's a mastery through just simplicity of understanding what it is that you're trying to convey. And when you understand that, you can really, you've sort of freed yourself of the limitations of being so bogged down to technical execution. You can focus more then on the communication of what it is you want to say. Seeing here where I can stick this guy. Don't want it to get too heavy on this side here, and I might take this guy out to just kind of simplify the length of the shape here. I might scale this down just to get some more intricate shape language detail there. I might go ahead and delete that for simplicity's sake. And then might scale down this guy really quick. Then I might play around with another kind of camera angle and see. And I also have some other sort of monster-like shapes and skulls that I might play around with. So I'll save this camera bookmark just to get this extra angle because I like it, and I might check around with my skulls and see what, or the skulls that I've sculpted over the years, and see what I can find in particular. There's always this one that I've been trying to find it's like trying to find a home. Like you sculpt a specific asset, and you want to see if you can find a sort of illustration or scene base that you can find a home for, where it kind of lives in harmony, if that makes sense. It's a little bit sort of might sound a little funny, but it's just not giving up on a certain kind of asset and seeing if you can really find a place where it can have a home and rest, if that makes any kind of sense. And it might work out for this guy, or it might not. It kind of depends on which way the wind's blowing. And I don't know if it's going to work out for this guy this time, but I think eventually we'll... Well, actually... makes it a little bit too heavy on one side, but let me see here. Oh, you know what? Floating. Well, floating things in the sky could be kind of cool. I have to kind of convey that some weird, funky stuff is going on. You'd probably have to have some like falling debris or something like that to convey it, not just have it look like a strange error. There's always this guy too that I'm trying to find a home for. He's got nice mandibles and teeth and stuff. I'm just trying to sort of figure out where I can, again, it's just trying to find a home for him in a good illustration. So the sculpture itself, or the asset that you sculpt, it can stand on its own, but it's always kind of cool to find a bit of harmony where it can, yeah, just sort of find a place where it can really help other assets and create this kind of ecosystem of different bits of storytelling that's not just a sculpted model, but something that can fit into an actual bit of storytelling and mood. So you can see it was moving pretty fast, and now it's slowed down quite a bit until we get, the exact right sort of feeling for everything. And that takes a little bit of time, but worth it. Because you really, the silhouette and the edge that conveys objects going back in space is really, it's really everything. I mean, the silhouette of this guy sort of trekking across the land, the silhouette of these large stone or mountainous entities out in the distance, the silhouette of this overhanging piece right here, and the bit of character in the toothy ridge. The only thing that's conveying a little bit of actual lit form is the soft ambient lighting of the ground, and then a couple planes illuminated by the fiery point light there. And the rest of it is kind of sticking to the strengths of a lot of the different mediums, whether it's rendering in a game engine or drawing with pencil or with paint or anything. It's just getting those strong, decisive shapes laid in. And it's a very classic cliche thing where it's like you can get really caught up in the ability to render form, and it's very important. But what comes before, of course, is just good shape design. That's absolutely essential. I like that. I don't know if it conveys any kind of sense as to what might be moving away from like a literal representation of a creature and more of a almost like attaching a more sort of abstract emotional entity or response to a natural element. I think an example of that I'd be reaching for is like the like scary trees in Snow White, where she's going into like a scary forest, and the natural elements are carry these sort of scary or foreboding characteristics to them, even though they're just trees. Any object we can imprint or communicate our human emotions onto any inanimate object. That's been the basic foundation that Disney has sworn by for ever since it started out, and it's had some really amazing results. And it's a really cool element to have in your art. Is just remember that no matter what object you're rendering, you can always pack personality into it, even if it's a cardboard box or anything like that. There's always room to put a emotional spin on something. That's kind of cool. Just kind of going with my basis of emotion here and seeing what I can find, whether I want to seeing what I want to convey. And it's kind of getting more into that sort of gut reaction feeling, which again, I've talked about this before, where as the future moves on, we'll move more and more into a scientific, analytical representation of rendering visuals, meaning the analytical or technical side of rendering visual elements will become more and more automated, most likely. And with that, the thing will always have to convey, and this is going to rely too on having an audience that wants to be surprised and communicate with other emotional entities, preferably human beings. So believe that'll be the case for quite some time. I cannot speak for the far distant future, but there's no way to ever predict when it comes to that. But what I'm getting to is that the important thing is that emotional kind of gut primal sensation or urge is always going to be a very essential part, and it's going to only get more and more important as the art scene goes forward and becomes more embraced by technology and where technology is going. So, and the good news about this is that the really fun part of art, not so much the racking your brain trying to come up with the perfect technical execution, there'll always be a demand for that, I think, in a way, because of just emphasis on the ability for human beings to just do that and have the human touch to that. We'll definitely always, I think, have an audience for it. I mean, there's, I think about that in an analogy of like athletics, where a long time ago we built machines that could best any physical strength of any human being. And but athletics and human beings being, making very good livelihoods, being, very successful based on their physical abilities, even though from a purely practical standpoint, it's pretty much kind of obsolete in the modern industrial world. But we still very much value the human's ability to do physical feats. And I think going forward, it'll be the same case with mental feats of technical execution and analytical execution. It'll be really interesting to kind of see, like, and we see demonstrations of this now with, like chess tournaments and stuff like that. But I'm getting on a huge tangent here. What I'm saying is getting the fun part of doing art, which is the sort of like getting the feeling in, getting that, really exciting punk rock kind of element to that. That's going to only become more important as technical execution of visuals is going to get more and more done by automation and machines. So look forward to that. It's the thing that and honestly, I mean, that's what Adobe and all the big technical conglomerates, they're pushing the groundbreaking technology. That's all they really want to convey. It's just like, hey, this is going to make art more fun. This is not going to take jobs. This is going to make jobs more fun and all that. So, and I do believe them when they say that. So I haven't gotten too cynical and hard-hearted yet. Just going to duplicate and get a little bit more of a cool lighting on this side to, might see coming over here. Kind of like this dark sort of red-green composition that's getting set up here. I think it's kind of cool. I think I might reach for this cloud car, see if I can get a little bit more atmospherics going here. Let's see here. Yeah. I'm just going to bump up just a little bit this fog and see what that does. Let me see too. I might have taken away from the silhouette a bit. Nah, not really. I wonder too if kind of take away. Yeah, I'm going to take that out just because the silhouette here is pretty important. The thing I'm kind of working on too is how subtle or how blatant the isolating of. You can see that little bit of pop there. That's just Z fighting with the planes, the cloud planes that I'm using, and just need to make sure all the planes are arranged in a certain way where they are all kind of working together. So one plane is stacked on top of the other, is what I'm saying there. Kind of like that. Let me see here. You don't want to get too abstract either, because you need some sort of grounding of reality, like a ground plane, a human figure, a fire, something like that, and a basic understanding of functionality that this could exist in a naturalistic world. That's always a very kind of tricky knife edge balance to get, which is, you want to get, for a long time, I was very obsessed with, like, I want to make something that no one's ever seen before. And you could aim for that, but it's very tough because you need to have some element of familiarity in the natural world. If there's too much just strange abstractness for the sake of abstractness, it's just gonna kind of trigger things in the human brain that's just gonna be like, yeah, I can't really have an emotional investment in this just because I am too obsessed with trying to figure out what's going on. And usually the human brain doesn't really like that. Usually, from my experience, where if it's too weird, it kind of stops being enjoyable, starts just being kind of frustrating. So you can go for weird, original designs and concepts. You just have to know that you'd have some sort of anchor of reality that will help kind of ground them in knowing that they can kind of go from there and then project out what else they can see there. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Maybe not. Let me see if I rotate this, if I can get any kind of... Yeah, there we go. Another thing I'll start doing here is I'll put in a post-process volume. Turn on infinite extent and start playing around with a bit of the saturation. Do 1.2. Yeah, this might be one of those two where I don't want to really crank the... or 1.1, I don't want to really crank up that saturation because as a mood piece, you kind of want the... kind of want to keep it a little more subtle and just keep these local values or these local colors a little bit more subdued to help with the mood. Cloud plane there is giving me a bit of trouble. Let me see here. Yeah, nothing that could cause this Z fighting is it's trying to figure out how the atmosphere of the exponential height fog is interacting with it. That could be another factor going on. Yeah, kind of looks like it. out, it might be contributing a little too much. Yeah, the start distance is good. Do that a bit. Just playing around with some of the exponential high fog work, or the settings there, see what kind of result I can get. And I might play around with the silhouette on this side of the image here. Let me go back to this guy too and just kind of play around with this basic shape, see what I can get on this side. Yeah, and it's very tempting to add more, but sometimes you just want to kind of leave it a little bit more subdued, just for the sake of getting that strong punch of emotional payoff. And that could be cool for leading the eye up down the painting here. I got a little bit of visual interest there to kind of link the eye back, which is always good. A little bit of recognition of foliage shapes over here to yeah. And sorry if I'm just kind of rambling or mumbling. It's just kind of that. Oh, yeah. Putting in an ambient cube map, you can see that intensity is way too high. So I'm gonna do a value of 0.05. Then you can see it helps kind of illuminate just a tiny bit in there. I like the sort of warm color it brings there in the basic cathedral, so I'm going to stick with that. Play with the ambient occlusion, put the radius in world space really quick. And I like the basic shapes that kind of move across the ground there. Let me just experiment a little bit more and see if I can get something interesting going on the vertical space here, or the wall. Oh, kind of like that, those local color brushstrokes that go across there. Yeah, it's a tricky balance because, like, in theory, like, you have all these options at your fingertips, so it's playing more of a role of a cinematographer rather than a artist. Sometimes it feels, or you're a if you're working in game art or in this kind of workflow, it's like being a cinematographer slash sculptor or something like that, where you don't have to worry about perspective. Like, everything is just at your fingertips, and that's both a wonderful thing and it's really freaky sometimes, where it's like, man, I could do almost anything, so what do I do? It's that kind of feeling. So you really want to make sure that let me see here, make sure the right projections go in there. So yeah, that's kind of a, I might go back into the post-process volume now. What's nice is that there are some serious blacks here, but nothing too bad, nothing that I think is really taking away from the end result. I might just kind of cheat here and crank up the subsurface scattering on this guy just to get a little bit of local local color back in the. So what I'm doing there is I'm kind of faking the bounce light by actually taking an emissive or subsurface scattering value and pumping it into the material itself. It's a way to fake lighting that has kind of been around for a very long time, and you can use in a pinch every once in a while. Put a little bit of grain in. Just a little bit. A little tiny bit of vignette as well. I'm going to keep that. Let me see, maybe rule of threes, you have one more back here. Just a faint indication of something. Maybe. Yeah, just the slightest. Another thing I want to make sure I'm working on too here is the sense of scale and scope is right. Because I definitely don't want to have it feel like everything's kind of crammed into a single space. What could help with that is well, that could definitely help. I turn down the intensity of that light just a little bit. I'm going to start taking this in full screen just to kind of see what the sense of scope is like here. I might play around just a little bit with I'm just kind of swirling stuff around just to kind of see what sort of results I can get here. So I think this part of the image is working good. I just want to see if I can and just get a better sense of scope and scale with this guy. So maybe if I move him a little bit further into the back here. Well, maybe not. Can also scale this guy down a bit. Always help with the scale, but then you kind of lose the silhouette. So this is where the cinematographer mode kind of comes in. Get rid of this plant. I don't really know if it's needed. The other thing I can do too is well, yeah, a lot of this is just playing around with basic silhouette work just to see what sort of results I can get here. I might go way back and just kind of see what's going on here, or what kind of feeling I can get from this. And you know what? I might take that out. That might help sort of lock up and Yeah, lock up and simplify a bit with what's going on there. I might conjoin that silhouette there, maybe not. But I like that there's not too much repetition of silhouette work there. I think that's gonna kind of do it. So I might grab that. I might even see if I can get the camera angle a little bit further out too. Might keep it at 120 just for sake of simplicity there. See if I can get this guy's silhouette sort of faced against the horizon a bit more for this shot. Maybe not. I'll take another shot here, and then I'll see if I can get another shot going. Kind of swing the camera around and see what sort of... Might do this one. Kind of for the last shot. I like to do them in threes. I think this is good. We'll just kind of have to tighten up some of the darker values near the top and bottom here, and I think we'll have kind of a nice moody piece that that can be a pretty good practice piece. Maybe two. Let me see. The that highlight there might actually be taken away a bit from the final image. Let me see. Well, you know what? Yeah, let me do another render here with that decal taken out. I might kind of selectively paint it out. Because yeah, that simplicity is kind of nice. That it's just that red sort of value laid in there. But yeah, I like that. I might take a little bit of the green here, lay it on top, and just paint in just a little bit. See how that looks. Yeah, like just the tiny amount there. See if that works. I can always do the opacity too, just to leave a faint amount. Something like that. I'm going to flatten it, or flatten the image, Control-Alt-Shift-D. Going to duplicate it, just run a simple little mild paint daubs filter over it just to sharpen the... Instead of using a sharpen filter, I just use the paint daubs with a brush size of about 2. It kind of sharpens up some of the values nicely that I like. So you can see that little bit of jump there. It's very, very subtle, but I like to use it. I'm going to take some of the dark values here and put in some gradients just to see if I can, yeah, see if I can bring some dark values in here. Also, too, see if I can bring some sort of light, more atmospheric values to the top here. No, I don't like that. But I do like darkening it from the top there. That's nice. Then, of course, do a flip horizontal just to catch any new atmospheric stuff that I might want to implement. And yeah, start playing with a little bit of levels work. Don't really crush the whites too much. Don't crush the blacks, and also you want kind of more rich values in here. That's always what sells a really nice rich painting is you don't want values that are like 0 or 1. You want to kind of bump them up just a little bit with a value of like 6 or something like that, and then start sort of filling those shadowed areas in where you can, especially in large spaces, because that gives an indication of mood or atmospherics. It's a very kind of subtle thing, but you want, yeah, that little bit of value difference there that'll help really sell it. So yeah, beware of those really black blacks. Of course, vibrance, which makes everything wonderful, which is not true, but it's nice to think. So I like the purples that are cropping up when I crank, but again, I'm using in the post-process volume and the local color of the decal that I'm laying down. Like, you can't just crank up the vibrance and just have all this magical stuff appear. It just kind of takes all the work that you've done and just pushes it just a little bit further. Doing a color balance, going for the highlights first to see what kind of implementations I can get there. Really like that purple and that blue. That could be really cool. Yeah. Could do another gradient pass near the bottom of the corner here. Yeah, just to bring in some of those darker values. Or get it so the dark values are a little more subtle. So on the midtones, just gonna just do a little tiny bit of tweaking just to see. This gets into very, specific implementations of what sort of color people like. Actually, I might put these back at 0. The midtones at least. So you can kind of muddle up the strengths of your colors if you're not careful by sort of just sliding stuff around for the sake of sliding it around. Like, you don't need to touch every one of these sliders. Not by a long shot. You just want to do what works best for you. Then one thing I might do, see if I can soften a bit of the edge up here, where the edge is a little bit sharp, because we want the sharp edges to be down here in the center of the picture with the silhouettes. Go back, maybe crank the lighter values just a little bit. Then another thing, just because it's kind of crazy, we can maybe put some vertical bars in here. Actually, I might do that later on when the image is more cropped, or to crop the image more if it's needed. But yeah, that's the basic September workflow of the Patreon landscapes I'm doing. I hope you enjoyed it, and keep making awesome art out there. Thank you.